aims to create at least 400 million jobs, including care and green sector, and to extend social protection to 4 billion people. We call for a human-centered green recovery through investments in decent work, social protection, and a just transition, especially for women and girls. Investment that could lift millions out of poverty, reduce vulnerability, and prevent deepening inequalities. Let us build a better future of work with the people at the center, a future that leaves no one behind.
Hi everyone, I'm Audrey Pett, and I'm the founder and executive director of Youth for Women in Technology Incorporated, or WeTech for short. WeTech started as a blog that shared stories of women in tech and how they navigated a field dominated by men. After attending a conference in 2017, I realized that more needed to be done in order to close the gender gap in tech. From there, WeTech became a community organization and hosted various events, including WitCon, the first Women in Tech conference for students and by students in the Philippines.
With its mission to educate, inspire, and empower the youth to break gender stereotypes and use technology for the betterment of society, WeTech has grown into a non-profit SEC-registered organization.
Our vision is to achieve gender equality in the technology industry by increasing networking opportunities for every young woman interested.
From a simple blog, WeTech has grown into an extremely impactful community. But wait, what does WeTech actually do now?
WeTech still continues its blog that is regularly updated with different STEM articles, research outputs, and interviews from women in the field of STEM. We also have our biggest annual event called WitCon, or the Women in Technology Conference. This event exposes students and educators to a wide array of accomplishments and research of Philippine women within the field of technology.
But that's not all we do. We also have other major projects such as We Teach, an outreach program that equips Filipinos with the tools necessary for them to forward their journeys in tech. We Talks, a series of talks that center around women using tech to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Roadshow, a series of campus visits consisting of career talks and forums on the state of tech in the country. An online tech camp, a camp for young Filipino students to participate in various STEM workshops and forums, and many, many more.
Impacting hundreds of lives, we have been recognized for our efforts to advance gender equality in the field of technology and STEM as a whole. From Manila to the rest of the world, WeTech began expanding its chapters in 2019. Now, we have over 20 chapters in Asia, North America, Africa, Oceania, and Europe, working together to spearhead our mission across the globe.
Every year, WeTech opens its doors to those who want to take part in achieving WeTech's goals. To know more about WeTech and what we do, visit our website, wi-tech.org, or visit us on our social media channels. Stay tuned for our future initiatives and be part of our growing global community. Join us and let's break barriers together.
Bilang babae, kailangang lumaban, tuloy lang ang buhay kahit anong problema, magkakaroon ka ng magandang trabaho, basta huwag ka lang mag-quit.
Importante po para mapaunlad po yung mga sarili natin, lalo na sa mga kababaihan na huwag matakot, ilabas po yung talent na meron sila.
I think that learning is a lifelong thing that every woman should really consider.
The Women in STEM program is a program that seeks to attract more women into careers in technology and to help women in this technology industry to stay and advance in this workplace. We do this through, number one, through scholarships that we provide to women in courses in technology such as animation, game development, software programming, impact sourcing, and web development. For women who are working in the technology industry, we are providing soft skills training to help women stay in the workforce and at the same time advance in this industry.
So, nung nag-join ako, natutong mag-computer. Sa training kasi nila, meron dyang e-commerce, website design, logo design. Tinuruan kami kung paano magkaroon ng online job. Tapos yun, nakakuha ko ng client, gumawa ko ng website.
Wala namang dapat ikatakot, 'di ba? So, if you're not going to try, hindi mo malalaman kung magwo-work. Lalo na kung talagang ang gusto mo, yung heart mo nandun sa ginagawa mo.
Kapag nag-train ka and kapag pinush mo yung sarili mo to do more than sa inaakala mo, marami ka palang kayang gawin and marami kang taong pwedeng matulungan.
First time ko po dito kasi parang wala talagang alam, wala akong background sa 3D. Yun lang alam ko mag-drawing. Tapos ng mga araw na lumilipas, parang siyempre pagbago ka mahirap. Pero nakakaya ko po yun.
Ayun, mas nag-widen yung perspective ko dun sa animation kasi mas marami palang nagagawa nga yung sa 3D. And ngayon, pag nanonood ako ng mga Disney cartoons, natutuwa ako sa kanyang panoorin kasi alam ko na siya ngayon kung paano nila ginagawa.
I was never a gamer like my classmates. Pero I love playing word games. Naisip ko, it would be nice siguro to understand how word games are done and how I could come up with simple games for children to learn how to read.
Women are more nurturing. They are the heart of the organization. They are more inclined to their emotions, which helps also in knowing which decisions to take.
We look at this as a great opportunity for women now to understand the opportunities that we have in the technology sector. There's still a lot of process of work that has to be done, but I believe that DICT and ILO has actually seen the great potential of this program.
TESDA is encouraging other women to grab this opportunity by exposing them to the field and motivating them that this is now the demand in the industry. I am very grateful to ILO for choosing TESDA as one of their partners in this program.
Excellence and determination to excel in a certain area does not depend sa gender naman ng tao. So women can do anything beyond what we can imagine naman talaga.
The UP National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development, or UP NISMED, is a research and extension unit of the University of the Philippines. Guided by its mandate to improve science and mathematics education, NISMED performs three major functions: research, curriculum development, professional development, and extension services. Through the years, NISMED has been generating new knowledge regarding science and mathematics teaching in the country. Research outputs, such as teaching materials, are tried and tested to teachers and students inside the classroom. Relevant and innovative teaching materials are made available online and at NISMED publications for distribution. In addition, NISMED is highly involved in the framing of the National Science and Mathematics Basic Education curricula. Equipped with subject area specialists, NISMED offers professional development programs which cater to the needs of teachers and educators in the country and Asia-Pacific region.
As a teacher, I am subjected to try new trends that will fit to the clamor of the new normal education. One of these trends is video lesson. This course is what we really need in this time of pandemic as it fits to the need of the new normal education. The dedication that UP NISMED has shown to us is really inspiring. With this, I am looking forward for more training courses not just in our school's division but also around the country. Keep inspiring and continue to work towards your institution's goal. Maraming salamat.
These training programs deepen teachers' understanding of the subject areas they teach. NISMED promotes science teaching through inquiry and teaching mathematics through problem solving. Not only it conducts training programs, but also mentors science and mathematics teachers in the elementary and secondary levels. NISMED also promotes lesson study, a school-based teacher professional development model which originated in Japan and is now gaining popularity in the country. To reach out to various communities, NISMED uses different platforms online. A It also ventured into television to popularize science among general viewers and used radio to reach out to more teachers and the public.
Ito po ang programang sadyang inahandog ng UP NISMED para sa kahit yung meaning na po ng ako.
To further its extension services, NISMED regularly conducts stargazing activities to accommodate school requests. It regularly opens its laboratories, providing opportunities for students to learn science and mathematics concepts and practice their applications. To conduct more effective programs and activities, NISMED partners with both local and international organizations. Committed to excellence, NISMED programs have continuously been achieving awards and recognitions. Since its establishment in 1964, NISMED continues its journey of commitment and service to lead the nation in science and mathematics education.
We at NISMED commit to be at the forefront of capacity building, research and innovation for science and mathematics education.
So you're scanning the globe for that perfect country to study abroad? We have just the right place for you. Austria, located in the heart of Europe. It's home to one of the oldest and most vibrant cultures on the continent. But you do wonder how they came up with those lederhosen and dirndl, because Austrians, they like wear them all the time. Plus, lots of yodeling. Not. Want some real facts? Here you go. Size, 83,871 square kilometres. Population, 8.7 million. Capital, Vienna. Oh my, so beautiful. Part of the European Union. Of course. So what about studying there now? Austria boasts 70 top-class universities with more than 380,000 students, of which 25% are international students. Its university system is part of the Bologna process, meaning ease of mobility inside the European Union for you and mutual recognition of degrees. Some other goodies. Various programs taught in English, scholarships and research grants, as well as climate award-winning affordable housing for scholarship holders. Austria is internationally renowned for its music and arts programs. Throughout all programs offered, sustainability and environment play a key role. And for your career after graduation, Austria provides state-of-the-art research facilities across the country. Life there? Well, let's put it this way. L'Autriche, 12 points. Vienna traditionally leads the pack of the world's most livable cities. Not necessarily because Austria won the Eurovision Song Contest, high five Conchita, but rather for this country's top public transport, social and economic stability, and a world-class range of cultural activities. Speaking of cultural activities, discover world-famous artworks, spend days and nights at the museum, and explore architecture's finest like nowhere else. Wherever your cultural explorations take you, take it gemütlich. Get together and make new friends. In the mood for a party after that? Your super hip outdoor music festival, the classical music concert, or the, oh my gosh, it's already 9 a.m. in the morning underground club is just around the corner. After a crazy night out, you may want to indulge in a Käsekreiner sausage at the Würstelstand and, oh yeah, a sweet, sweet Apfelstrudel to top it off. Had too much? Then go out. Move. Oida! Oida? You've probably never heard of Oida, but it's a word you hear all the time in Austria, meaning dude. But actually, it could mean just about everything. By the way, you definitely should get familiar with Grüßein, Leihwand, Gspusi, Ocho, and Beisel. Need a break from all that Austrian? Board a train, jump on a plane, or take the boat. The rest of Europe is closer than anywhere else. Go out, explore, highlight your future, study in Austria.
My name is Gaia Novarino, and I'm working at the Institute of Science and Technology, Austria. Essentially, it's a research institute that is doing top-notch research.
My name is George Katsaros, and I'm working in the field of semiconductor physics. So what we do is really fundamental research. So the long-term dream is really the holy grail, this quantum computer. But what drives me every day is really to understand basic physics. Well, in 10 years, I hope that we will be mentioned as one of the top places, not just in Europe. And that's why we are all doing our best.
Wir suchen Insekten und wir schauen sie uns an. Ich mache einen Roboter, der mein Zimmer aufräumen soll. Wir haben geschaut, wie lange Wasserbomben brauchen, um aus dem 3. Stock auf den Boden aufzuprallen. Wir machen gerade Papier. Wir bauen einen Roboter. Ja. Eigentlich hat mir das alles gefallen. Es ist wirklich schön.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Women in STEAM Careers webinar series with the theme Celebrating Women and Girls in Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Culture, and Mathematics. I am Helen Catalan of the University of the Philippines National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development, or UP-NISMED, and I will be your host for this afternoon's event. The Women in STEAM Careers webinar series is in observance of the UN International Day of Women and Girls in Science and is an initiative of the Austrian Embassy Manila in partnership with the International Labour Organization, Department of Education, the National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development, and the Youth for Women in Technology Incorporated. This webinar is also being live streamed via the UP-NISMED and Go Teacher Go Facebook pages. For our Zoom participants who are using mobile phones, you have an option to watch the webinar via the UP-NISMED Facebook page at bit.ly/UP-NISMED Facebook page for a better viewing experience. This webinar is third of a series and has the guiding theme, The Wonderful World of Science and the Arts, Women in Science, Culture, and the Arts. Before the introduction of the panelists, I'd like to inform the audience that we will be taking questions and fielding them to our panelists. You may want to note down these questions and write these questions into the chat window. Alternatively, you may use the raise hand button. Please wait for the moderator to recognize you and allow you to unmute yourself. May I also remind the audience to mute your microphone during the presentations. Thank you. This afternoon, we are so fortunate to be graced by experts in their respective fields. To introduce our panelists for this afternoon's webinar, may I call on the Director of the National Institute for Science and Mathematics Education Development, University of the Philippines, Dr. Sherilyn C. Monterola. Ma'am?
Thank you, Doc Helen. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope our teachers and our students are here with us this afternoon, listening to the panel discussion. So it is with great pride and honor that I introduce our talented women creators who will share with us the evident convergence of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the work that they are doing in elevating arts and culture in diverse forms. Let me introduce our three panelists for this afternoon. Our first panelist, Alexandra Fruhstorfer, is a transdisciplinary designer with an investigative and research-driven approach. After graduating from industrial design at the University of Applied Arts, Vienna, and working in London for a bit, she is now based in Vienna. Within her creative practice, she questions prevalent political and cultural paradigms while trying to embrace phenomena of accelerated technological and ecological change. Design is her experimental medium to not only make ideas, but ideals which are imaginable and discussable for a broad audience. Her experiential projects are often participatory in nature and flourish in collaboration with others. Lately, her work has been shown at the Design Biennale in Porto, at the Triennale di Milano, the CID Grand Hornu in Belgium, the Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna, and at the Ingenium, Canada. From her design and research studio in Vienna, she is working on projects at the intersection of humans and non-humans, culture, nature, and technology. Currently, her research and design focus revolve around how our understanding of work and productivity are related to the anthropogenic impact on our planet. That's our first panelist, Ms. Alexandra Fruhstorfer. For our second panelist, Ms. Ria Lu is the studio director of Laguna Games Philippines and executive director of the Games Developers Association of the Philippines. She has had 14 years of business experience and is well-versed when it comes to game and content development. She is the past president of the Soroptimist International Club of Parañaque, a social-civic organization advocating for the betterment of the lives of women and girls, a past board member of the Game Developers Association of the Philippines, and a 2015 awardee of the Go Negosyo Filipina Entrepreneurship Award. Again, friends, let us welcome Ms. Ria Lu, our second panelist. Our third panelist this afternoon, Ms. Teresa Barrozo, is a sound artist, composer, and curious listener with a wide range of work for film, theater, and dance. Her sound works and compositions have been featured in the Performatura Festival and Arquitectura Festival in the Philippines, Sound Plus Environment 2017 in the United Kingdom, Asian Composers League festivals in Japan and Thailand, and the Asia Pacific Weeks in Germany. Her film music works have been part of major international film festivals in Cannes, Venice, Toronto, Locarno, and Berlin. She was a recipient of the Ani ng Dangal Award from the Philippines National Commission for Culture and the Arts and was granted an internship by the Biosphere Soundscape International Internship Program. In 2014, she became a fellow of the Asian Cultural Council in New York, where she focused on sound art and design, performance, and contemporary sonic practices in listening, field recording, acoustic ecology, neuromusic, and electronic and computer music composition. Again, with great pride and honor, I present to you our third panelist, Ms. Teresa Barrozo. To start our panel this afternoon, we will first listen to the presentation of Ms. Alexandra, a transdisciplinary designer. May I invite Alexandra to start her presentation for this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here and share some of my projects with you. And I will just share my screen. Yes, Cheryl already introduced me. I'm a transdisciplinary designer. That's what I call myself, working between several disciplines, between culture, nature, working with stakeholders from science, from civil society, from politics. So really trying to be a bridging position between different stakeholders. This is my doorbell sign of the studio in the 6th district. You heard some about Vienna already in the clip before. It's quite in the center of Vienna, and I work in a collective studio here with several other creatives, which is a very nice, inspiring environment. Those are some images of some of my work, and this is also how I, in a way, structured my presentation. I will browse through the diversity of my projects, which could be either more related towards technology-based questions, or rather regarding the natural sciences, or even social politics. So I will start with a recent, it's not a recent project, it's actually, it started already a few years ago, but with colleagues together, I'm developing different aspects of the project further. The project is called Transitory Yarn, and it's a circular process to enable a more sustainable production processes in textile industry. And this can work by employing knitting technology. As you see in this image, it's about keeping resources in the loop, and knitting technology is quite amazing for this, because you are it's possible to unravel existing garments and make something new from it. So the question for this project was, how do we design for future production processes in an age of decreasing resources? And by this, when we talk about research and science, to me, it's very important to also lay hands on the topics myself, not only rely on secondary research, but really do primary field research. What we did here was working together with a recycling facility and browsing through the endless stream of discarded garments flowing into their facilities. So after it was only half a day of sorting. This is the best of the knitted discarded materials we gathered, and we analyzed this material for what is it composed of, like what's the initial research, where was it made, what's the condition, and we quickly realized it's really hard to work with existing discarded materials. Like of course, it would be really appreciable to reuse some of the materials that are already there. But the thing is that the materials, how they are constructed now, they are not made for circularity, and mostly the materials are also not so high in quality. So that's why it's really hard to reuse them. So what we did was to imagine how would textiles have to be made, how would garments have to be made in order to serve this process of circularity. And we thought, like, this is really a concept. We thought about, okay, what would be the use cases for people, for users? And for example, this is the case of seasonal changes, like, if you don't need something because it's winter garments, you can transform it into something else in summer. Or what if our garments could grow with us? Like if your pullover you had as a baby, you could unravel it, add some wool to it, and it could grow with you. And this example is about very specific life phases. For example, if you're pregnant, you need a bigger dress. when the baby's in the world, you can share your dress with the baby, unravel it, and make 2 garments from it. So this is how the whole thing looks like. We imagined it as a really interactive process where the user really is empowered to be part of it. So we created this workbench-like construct where you can unravel your existing garments. You don't need any more easily. So this is how it looks. And here you see an overview of the space, how it could work. You have your first generation garment on the left, you unravel it in the middle, and you walk away with a cone of wool and can reknit it into something else. And this is actually a video of the knitting machine we used ourselves. We produced this little collection ourselves. And of course, the social context around such concepts is really important. So we imagined it as a kind of a local service point where people could gather together, share their knowledge, unravel their garments, and have conversations about what can be made from it. So it's really like a store that could be in every shopping district. Thinking further along resources and materials in textile industry, it's not only important to think about how should textiles or garments be created in the future, but also how do we deal with our material legacies from the past. Maybe you saw also the huge dumps of discarded garments in the Chilean Atacama desert that were sent around the globe. I think it was only a few months ago that the images of the desert were really present in the media. So it's really like about what do we do with these huge amounts of materials that are often also very harmful for the ecology. This is a mugshot. It's a mugshot. It's actually a microscopic image of a microplastic fiber. It's a nylon material, and this is under the microscope. You see that it's constructed from many, many tiny microfibers. And many of you might have heard about the problematics of microfibers, that when you wash your clothing, your clothes is made from plastic, you wash out some of the microfibers, and creatures in the sea, for example, mistake it for food, and they fill their bellies with it, like this little water flea. Like the green point you see in the belly, this is all microplastic, which is only, of course, one example of how animals and other creatures devour plastic, and how it can enter also the food chain. But very recently, a study found out that not only through washing our garments, microplastics are released, but also through just walking around, just through our movement. A lot of microplastics are released into the air around us, and they ultimately land in the soil below our feet. So the question was, where should our polyester pullovers go now? If it's not safe to use them, if it's not safe to wear them, what should we do with it? And this was our initial question for a project we facilitated and conceived during the Porto Design Biennale last year. It was about thinking about how to deal with garments made from plastic in the future. And this is actually the outcome we did. It was a participatory workshop where, together with citizens from Porto and the area there, we gathered plastic materials, plastic clothes from their wardrobes, from secondhand stores, and we transformed it into something that cannot be harmful for the ecology anymore. So this was the pile of garments we took as a project for 3 days. This was our workshop space. So we had different facilities to destroy and shred and blend those garments to kind of trap the microfibers. And this is how the workshop looked like. Like, it was really hands-on, and we disassembled those garments to not be harmful for future generations anymore. And that's the final result. This was a winter jacket once. So you see that it's composed of 3 different plastic materials. And science in this respect was really important, because for all of my projects, especially in the very early research phases, but mostly throughout all the projects, I collaborate and converse with scientists from those fields I work in. So for this example, for this project, we had discussions with microplastic experts working really in the field, doing research on how microplastics impact different creatures in our natural systems. So I'm jumping to a totally different project. This is a project which is already a little older, and it was a study about how can we think about mobility in a smart world, in a world that is more and more relying on sensors. You all might know the Google smart cars that are already cruising through the Silicon Valley. And I took a little bit of a different perspective on the topic. The illustration you see here is a movement triangle of a student in Paris. And you see that it's really the everyday routes people do is usually mostly between 3 points. So it's work, it's leisure, and it's home. And I took this reference and this research to think about a different kind of mobility. This is a quote from Guy Debord. He's from the situationist, from the international situation. Okay, research him. He's from a movement. He's from a movement of people and activists who really advocated for to look at mobility in an urban context from a different point of view. I took this principle of the derive he's talking about as a title for the project also. A derive is something in a derive, it's a kind of a journey. One or more persons during a certain period drop their relations, their work and leisure activities, and all the other usual motives for movement and action, and let themselves be drawn by the attractions of the terrain and encounters they find there. Referencing this quote, I created a vehicle I call Derive, which is about, you see, it's an autonomous vehicle, and it's a glimpse into how could urban mobility look like in the future. It's not a prediction how it should look like, but it's more an imagination how it could look like apart from moving from A to B. But if we want to see mobility rather as a journey than a very purpose-oriented trip. So you see, it's a hybrid between architecture and vehicle, and it moves very slowly across the city, and the traffic could flow beneath. And of course, it's very smart because it has sensors all over it that make it possible. I'm jumping to another project that revolves about smart environments, which is basically it's a project consisting of 2 case studies, 2 experiments. This is the first one, and it's about it's called How to Behave, and it's about a speculative smart environment. So for this project, we took a look into how would our everyday rituals and our everyday relationships change if our homes would be equipped with smart environments, if sensors would kind of monitor our movements and our behaviors. And what you see here is a table with sensors and little machines on the table. And those machines, they judge your behavior at the table, you know, your eating etiquette. We have lots of eating etiquette in Austria where there are different rules for how you hold your cutlery and what to do and what not to do, how to sit and how to move. So those machines, they judge your behavior at the table. So this is how it looks like. You have those small machines, and they depending on if you move, if you behave in a good way or if you behave in a very sloppy way, they punish you even. And built upon this idea, we developed this further into a scenario that revolves around augmented reality glasses. You might remember Google glasses. Google glasses, they were a big thing a few years ago, and they kind of disappeared. But we took a look at, okay, how would Google glasses change our social relationships if they were used for monitoring? So it's really a rather critical approach. It's not a proposal in this case. It's rather a critical analysis. What could happen if Google glasses enter our everyday relationships and environments? So you see people eating together in a restaurant, wearing their glasses, and the other person sees like what's allowed and what's not allowed. You see the person is chewing with an open mouth and having a smartphone during eating. That's definitely not allowed according to Austrian etiquette. So you always pointed, the technology points out your mistakes and failures. And this was the kind of dystopian narrative we built around it. It's a system. You see, there's a database behind the glasses. There is rules and regulations according to your behavior, and there is social consequences. And maybe we know this already. Like this kind of became reality. If you take a look at China, their social credit system, it's essentially this, and this is a project from years ago. It's actually from 2014. So it was a kind of dystopian glimpse into the future, but it in a way became reality, which is quite worrying. And to tell the story around it, we created those props, nearly like in the movie, where you could see what is the political consequences and implications of this system. So this was rather storytelling. And I want to conclude with a project I'm working on at the moment, which is called the Danube Transformation Agency for Agency. And as Cheryl already mentioned in the introduction, I mostly collaborate in my projects. For example, for Transitory Yarn, I collaborated with two colleagues of mine, Max Scheidel and Anna Neumerkel. With the second project about microfibers, I collaborated with Cecil Ugur-Chevus, a researcher from Bolzano. For the table manners, I collaborated with Lisa Hofer, for example. And for this, I'm collaborating with 4 international artists. Like we are scattered around Europe, from Serbia, which is Andrea Palasti. You see the second from the right. To Vienna, which is Lena Violetta Leitner on the left, and the second from the left is Igi Kökl. To the middle is Solmaz Farhang. She's initially from Iran and now based in London. So we are kind of international female collective, and we call ourselves the Danube Transformation Agency for Agency, and we work around more desirable, more equitable imaginaries around the Danube River. So you might know that Danube is the second largest river flowing through Europe, and it flows through 10 countries. It starts in the north, it's connected to the North Sea even, and goes all the way to through Romania, Bulgaria, and even part of it is in the Ukraine. So we took a look at and the Danube is really under stress through under pressure through climate change, but also through other diverse anthropogenic impacts, like human implication, human consequences of our human behavior. So a river system is a kind of very fragile ecological entity and system. And we took a look at the various challenges the Danube faces already today, but will face in the future due to climatic changing conditions, for example. So this is the Danube in Serbia. Actually, we have really, in Vienna and Austria, we really have fantastic wastewater treatment, but this is not the case in Serbia. In Serbia, actually, the poo, the feces from the cities, they really go straight into the Danube, which is, of course, quite troubling for all the creatures. Yeah, for the quality of the water. So this is how it looks like. This is wastewater just pouring into the Danube in Serbia. And this is how to access wastewater in Vienna. This is in the very center of Vienna. There are those access points to the canalization, and we did a field trip down the canalization in Vienna. And this is how, this is my colleague Ega taking some photos. So this was again about doing primary research, reaching out to scientists, to people who actually work there. Like we had a guide who's working in the canalization, dealing with the poo underground. And this is a really important part of our work, to really get in close contact and touch with scientists. And this is the wastewater treatment plant in Vienna, which is incredible. And the water that really, the water that exits this facility, you can nearly drink it. It's really clear, and it goes into the Danube, but it's a really clear and good water quality. And we were thinking about, okay, how can we transform our knowledge and our research into an artistic project and program? And we researched a lot about different species in the Danube, how those species react to foreign substances also. And this is, you might not know this mussel, but it's an invasive species actually. It's a Chinese pond mussel with the name of Cynodonta woodiana. And it's you know, invasive species. They are species that got imported from other countries, and mostly those species have negative effects on the habitats they enter, because they compete with other native species, for example, or they bear a threat for humans also. So we took a look at this species because we found it interesting that it travels so far, and that it sits in a Danube now. And the interesting fact about this species is that it is a bioindicator. Mussels, most mussels, they suck up pollutants, and they react to those pollutants depending on what's in the water around them. So we thought maybe this mussel woodiana, she knows a lot more about the Danube than we do. So we created the Woodiana Oracle, which is a forecast service. It's a website. You can access it on the Woodiana today, woodiana.today. It's an interactive forecast service. And I always have a little bit of troubles with calling it forecast, because it's not so much about predicting and about forecasting, but it's more about imagining. And what Woodiana does is she takes all the data that's collected 20 years back from the Danube of substances that were found in the Danube. So for this, we collaborated with the ICPDR, which is the International Commission for the Protection of the River Danube, which is an international organization that works on the restoration of the ecology of the Danube. And we got data sheets from 20 years back. So Woodiana takes those data sheets and she works with kind of an artificial intelligence base, where she on which she bases her predictions on. So it's, yeah, as I said, it's not so much about predictions, but it's about imaginations. So she works with research and the data about all the substances in the Danube and creates scenarios from this. You can try it out yourself. It's in English and it's openly accessible. If you want to know more, visit Woodiana today. So this is the data we fed to her. It's numbers, but she translates those numbers into stories. And this is the Center for the Promotion of Science in Belgrade, which was an exhibition, and Woodiana was accessible there. And we wanted to really make a provocative proposal, adding on top of a very strict science. Because what's sometimes missing in science and what's missing also in artificial intelligence and technology in general is imagination. You need imagination to create something that is not only reproducing previous patterns, but that is opening up very different perspectives and possibilities for the future. So that was our mission for this project. And I want to conclude with this slide again with some of the glimpses of my project. And thank you very much for your attention. It's great to be part of this format. Thank you a lot.
Wow, Alexandra, just wow. Very impressive projects that you have, Alexandra. And we have exciting questions, very interesting questions posed to you by our participants. Really amazed by the breadth and depth of the projects that you have. When I was saying earlier, elevate, the arts, design, technology, and culture, but you have taken it into a different level. But Alexandra, most of our participants here and our viewers in our Facebook pages are actually teachers, and probably would like to find out, like you at this point you're a successful transdisciplinary designer, and what would you tell teachers who would like to broaden the perspectives of other young learners to, let's say, probably venture into this kind of career, being able to touch a lot of lives, being able to collaborate with a lot of people. So what would you tell our teachers?
Thank you for this question. It's really, I think I was inspired by some of my mentors very much. And I was constantly encouraged to, on the one hand, it's about reaching out to people, like really leaving your comfort zone, really not being afraid to write 20 emails, maybe you're lucky and there's one or two people getting back to you, interesting people that could also be potential collaborators for the future. So I would really encourage students also to be brave and reach out to scientists. Mostly scientists are really busy because they have to write and research all of the time. But sometimes you're lucky and get in touch with interesting people who could be really also, potential partners for the future. So that's what I experienced in my studies as well. Like I still have collaborations with people I contacted back then. And the other thing is the making part, which is definitely rather from a design perspective now, but really don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and thinking through making. I think this is something which is mostly maybe a little bit undervalued, that trying things out yourself really gives a different dimension to your research, and you can really produce different knowledge from this. And also what's important is document the things you do and share with others. I think that would be some tips I would have in my tip portfolio maybe.
Thank you, Alexandra. I'd like to read a question that was sent by one of the participants. Just also reading it verbatim. Hi, Miss Alexandra. It's very interesting to know what you do. I just want to know more about the nature of your work as a transdisciplinary designer. How do you start? And there is a follow-up question, related question in the chat box, asking here, how do you generate or identify the ideas to investigate and work on?
I think what's getting more and more important, from my position now, it's really hard to even identify if I start, because mostly it's about developing something further and something leads naturally to something else. But I think it's important to start with something that touches your heart. It's something, if you care about something, you can really it's about being happy with the things you research and the things you create. And I think this is the most important, to identify, and maybe this is even the most difficult, to identify what you truly care about. And I think sometimes it's good to leave some expectations behind, because especially in science and technology, I think there is a general mood to expect science and technology to solve all our problems. But sometimes, or maybe in many cases, it's not about that technology can save us, but it's about maybe rethinking social relationships, or taking another look and another look at something very different. so I would say yes. Yes, the initial question was where to start. I would say it should really think about what's important to you and what you care about and what you want to dedicate your valuable time to. I think this is yes, and I think it's justifiable to have a mix of objective challenges and problems that are out there, but also something that is very personal and individual. But yes, it's hard to tell. I think there's no really secret recipe how to do this.
But I like how you said that it's first and foremost, it should touch your heart. It's something that you feel strongly about. So thank you for that, Alexandra. As I invite the other participants who are in the Zoom room to also, if you have some questions and you want to directly ask Alexandra your question, please raise your hand. And as I recognize you later on, you may chat with Alexandra and ask your question directly. But here's another question, Alexandra, that was sent in our collection box. How does transdisciplinary approach differ from multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches? And what are the advantages of using such approach?
I think, of course, it's a mix of all of this. I wouldn't say I would exclude multidisciplinary or cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary. But transdisciplinary means also that I'm practicing, that I'm trying to create hybrid methods also. Like I'm borrowing from different fields. Like I'm interested in the natural sciences myself. I'm borrowing methods from futuring, from industrial design, speculative design, from social design. I studied political science also. So I have the feeling you shouldn't have the feeling to have boundaries to your own expertise. And that's why I call it transdisciplinary, but of course it doesn't differ so much from multidisciplinary, but it's not being afraid to merge those disciplines and maybe create some new methods and tools to combine all the knowledge and strategies applied in the different disciplines. Yeah.
Thank you, Alexandra, because transdisciplinarity implies that you work with a lot of other disciplines at the same time that you also explore these different disciplines. There was this question sent by our participant talking about the challenges or the lows of that you encountered working with people from different disciplines. And at the same time, I'd also like to explore the positive aspect, the highs of or the opportunities that you get from collaborating with a diverse set of people.
I'm starting with the challenges. I think sometimes it's a challenge, but it's also a good practice to work together with others, because especially I'm a designer, and but I wouldn't say I'm a classic designer making beautiful things, but it's very research based. So I think to open up or break open expectations from partners, this is something that is challenging, because sometimes they think, okay, she's a designer, she's making beautiful vases, or she's designing, I don't know, plates or clothing. And to explain to explain this bigger scope of design and what design can be, and it is something very future facing and provocative and radical also. Or that it could be something that's also about storytelling and about communication and about generating knowledge also. I think this is the challenge, but that's always also a good practice on how to position yourself in relation to others. And of course the challenge, as I said, scientists are very busy people, and you have to really, I think the challenge is to really convince people of that the work you are doing is worth their time. And but this is good, because it's like pitching all of the time. And by pitching all of the time and explaining your ideas and explaining what you care about, this really also makes you think about the things you do differently and more, and maybe you turn your ideas, and it's really good talking about and this is maybe it flows into the positive us. because talking about your ideas with others is really great in developing your ideas further and kind of clarifying, because if you're researching something, and especially if you want to create something more artistic, or if you want to create something provocative, you are moving or floating in this constant mess, and at some point you have to clarify what you actually want to do, like what is the impact you want to have, what is the message you want to convey. And for this, talking to other people, reaching out to partners who are not from your field, I think is really valuable and really important.
Thank you, Alexandra. Such rich insights. We learned a lot from that one. And here's another one from our Google Doc. It says here, do you follow particular design principles for all your work? Is there like sort of formula for it, for designing?
That's a really good and tricky question. I have to say, I think not at all. There are those people, maybe rather designers who focus very much on the aesthetic side of their project. Like, I think if a project is convincing for its specific context, it's important to leave open your aesthetic explorations to be open, to be applicable to different contexts. I'm not like, I don't have a color palette, or I don't have a shape principles or whatever. I think it's really my principle is rather to follow the process and let the process guide the way. And also, since I'm working together a lot with other artists also, it's I have to keep some flexibility, because you sometimes throughout the project you only find out what the aesthetics or what the final output or what the shape and the visual component or the audio component, like everything that's experienceable, like let's say the sensual component, what it has to be to serve the purpose of the project the most. So I'm being, maybe, I don't know, so I don't have a design CI or something. Like I'm really open to exploring this, because I think it's also, for me, it's very nice to be able to develop myself further and try out different things and see how they work for me. So I don't have any principles, which is maybe different to many other designers who have their very specific approach to creating. Yeah.
I hope you're still okay, Alexandra. We keep on getting a lot of interesting questions. Here's another one. The comment that you made about what science and AI lack is imagination. It is something that actually struck a chord among our participants, and it's worth reflecting according to our participant, especially for teachers. So how can teachers spark students' imagination and creativity, and use transdisciplinary principles especially in open distance learning?
Open distance learning, yeah. I think I know now from experience, because I'm working a lot with participatory workshops where it is actually about enabling imagination and opening up imaginative thinking. And this is, of course, challenging in those digital and virtual times. But actually, with my collective DTAFA, like the female art collective introduced in the very last project, we are experimenting on different interactive formats that are also applicable for online formats. Of course, it's lots of work to make something or to do this online, because the sensual and personal dimension is totally missing, which is really like I can only compare it from my own experience. Like, I did lots of workshops where we really had 3 days with a bunch of people, with a group, and you really grow together in those 3 days when you're together in a room, you eat together, you talk, you can look at the people from different angles. You know, we only have this one angle where we can look at each other. It's so sad. But there are definitely strategies that you can also apply online, but it's way more difficult. But what I would always suggest is reach out to art students also, because I think that art and design students, it's also for them a nice opportunity to create something for the real world in a way. And I do lots of workshops with students and kids also. So I think to include artists or from other experts in a way from other fields and from the cultural sector could be could be maybe interesting to work out some new and experimental formats together. I think like it's not the best answer now, but the only one I can think of now.
Yeah. But it actually resonates a lot of very good advice for us, Alexandra, and thank you for that. As we wrap up your session this afternoon, Alexandra, I'd like to ask you for your final message for our last message for our participants.
Oh, a last message. I'll keep it a little bit blurry. I would say don't lose your own interest and passion while following this tech route. It's really good. It's really good to know about technology, to know how technology works, how algorithms work, how this whole complexity, but to really be critical about it. I think if you know the tools, if you know how those systems that surround us work, that's excellent, because then you can really question what's good or bad, what's desirable, or what we maybe should leave behind in those also. So I would really encourage get to know as much as possible about it, but still don't lose sight of all the various troubles we are facing in the future that cannot be solved through technology, but that are maybe rather from a social political point of view to tackle. So I don't know, maybe this was a big advice or a big message, but I think if you just follow your heart with the projects you work on, and try out and work hard for then nothing can go wrong.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, for that heartfelt and inspiring final message. So we'd like to take this opportunity for you. I turn it over to Dr. Helen to award the certificate of appreciation. Thank you so much, Alexandra.
Thank you too. It's a pleasure.
Thank you po, Ma'am Sher. So we will now award the certificate of appreciation to Ms. Fruhstorfer. Please allow me to read the contents of the certificate. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Alexandra Fruhstorfer for unselfishly sharing her valuable time, expertise, and meaningful insights as panelist during the Science Diplomacy Workshop, Women in STEAM Careers webinar series, The Wonderful World of Science and Arts, Women in Science, Culture, and the Arts, with the theme, Celebrating Women and Girls in Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Culture, and Mathematics, held via Zoom on March 18, 2022. Signed, Sherilyn C. Monterola, Director, UP NISMED, Linartes M. Viloria, National Project Coordinator, Women in STEM Workforce, Readiness and Development Program, ILO, Madeline Mitchell Yolanda, Press and Cultural Officer, Austrian Embassy, Manila.
That's so kind and amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alexandra.
So let's give Ms. Fruhstorfer a virtual applause. So we will now have a photo op to document this event. If you can, kindly turn on your video and give us your best smile. Ma'am Michelle?
Yes, thank you, Doc Helen. All right. Okay, smile. 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Very much, Alexandra. We hope to engage with you some more for other possible collaborations, perhaps. So we'll get in touch with you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. It was really a pleasure.
The next panelist is no less than the Executive Director of the Game Developers Association of the Philippines. Let's listen to the sharing of Ms. Ria Lu regarding game development. Ma'am Ria, we turn it over to you. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Well, we have a lot of people here. We have more than 100 people. All right. Let me share my screen. Is it showing correctly or is it showing the
yes,
wrong?
we can see it now.
Right. Okay. So yes. Hello. My name is Ria Lu. Currently, I have two roles right now. Number one is I'm the studio director of a company called Laguna Games, and I'm also the executive director of the Game Developers Association. So let me just show you about the thing, a little bit about what we do. So this is one of the this is a game that we have in Laguna Games. It's called Crypto Unicorns. Actually, it's a really fun little casual game. It's farming, breeding, and then you need like unicorns to be able to play it. So yeah, these are actually my unicorns. So yeah, you can players of the game will actually have their own very unique their own unique unicorns, and then you need them to play the game, and this is mine. So these are the things that we do in our company. Actually, we make characters, we make worlds, and then we program them into a game. And so yeah, what I'd like to do this afternoon would be to actually tell you a little bit more about the industry, because we look at this and we know that okay, it's cute, it's a game, but we don't actually always know what goes on really behind the scenes. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how the flow is for you to reach something like this. And also, I know that it's mostly teachers and students who are in the audience right now, so I think it might be also a good idea to talk about the careers that you can look at within the game development space. So, but just so you know, I'm also hiring. So if any of you have friends or you have networks that are looking for looking to join a game company, please let them point them to this URL, laguna.games. Oh, having said that, while it's called Laguna Games, we're actually not in Laguna. Some people would think some people think that we're actually based in Laguna. We're actually based in BGC, but our head office is in the US. So it's actually Laguna, as in Laguna Beach, not Laguna, Philippines. It just so happened that we set up a branch in the Philippines, and we just so happen to have a Laguna here. So, sige, let's talk a little bit about game development. And then later, please feel free to ask. I'm sure there are questions about it, and I think it would be a lot more fun to actually answer your questions than just giving you information one way. So yeah, so what is it like in a game development company anyway? What happens within a game development company? What happens so that we create a game? So the first thing that happens in a game is really game design. When we talk about game design, we're not yet talking about art. It is just design, really. This is the part where people think of how the flow of the game happens, what the levels would look like. This is where you design the puzzles of the game, if you have puzzles of the game, mechanics, rules. That's what happens in game design. So that's the first part. And it's actually a very exciting part of game development, because all of the brainstorming, ideas, and things like those happen within the game design part. So here in the Philippines, when we're talking about game designers, there are several game designers. I think there's not a lot of them, because just to give you also an idea of the industry that we are in, the Philippine game industry is half an outsourced industry and half an original game industry. So there are companies locally, like our company, Laguna Games. We make our own games. So we conceptualize our own story, we make our own games, and therefore we really need a game designer in-house. But there are a lot of companies also in the Philippines that are involved in the outsourced side of games, which is they basically do parts of the game for bigger companies abroad. Like for example, there would be companies that do just the art, or it's not even like all of the art usually. It's like just the props of the game, or just the backgrounds of the game, or just the testing of the game. So that's the other side of game development in the Philippines. So game design is the first step. The second step, after you do game design, you usually get into, so game design involves pre-production. That's the planning happens there. When after that we go into the production phase, or what we call the development phase, wherein we actually make the stuff that will be put together into a game. So after the game design, now we get into game art. Game art is when we actually draw the characters, actually do the backgrounds, make them move, make the sprites so that they're animated when you're playing them and things like those. So that's the game art side. Game programming happens in a lot of companies. What happens is game programming happens during game art. So while one team is doing game art, one team is doing game programming. So that's programming the game, and then eventually when the art is ready, the programming team will also be pulling the art and then integrating it into the team, into the main system. Now for game programming, there's two types. One is what we call the front end game programming, which is what you see in the game. So if you see the flashing stuff, or the scores, or the actual animation that you see on screen, some of the animation there are programmed and not necessarily just drawn, they're programmed. So that's the front end game programmer's job. Then after that, we also have the back end game programmer. These programmers do the programming of things that you do not see. So for example, in-app purchases, if you want to buy something in the game. So that's the job of the back-end programmer, or the databases, or like functions that allow you to save at a certain point and then load your game again. That's the job of the back-end game developer. So that's game programming. Also part of the programming and part of the production phase is really testing. There's a lot of testing when it comes to games. So because this is, at the end of the day, games are commercial products. So before we launch it, we really need to test it. And part of the testing is we have functional testing, which is the test that checks if the game works. Okay? Then we also have stress testing, which is a test if the game will work if there are a lot of players. Okay? So there are games, of course, that you know that there are games that have a lot of players, like thousands or maybe even millions of players. So you need to check if your game is going to withstand the stress, withstand the number of people playing. So that's part of the production phase also. And then when that's done, we launch. Okay, how do we launch? We put it up in the App Store, make it ready, get it available for everyone. If not the App Store, some people opt to put it on platforms like Steam, which allows people to download it on their laptops or desktops. There are some who just want it on the websites. These are web games, that's also possible. So that's launched. And then once it's launched, we're not yet done. We actually have what we call game support. And in game support, that's the game is already up, but you have people in the background, monitoring the game, making sure that nothing bogs down, nothing stops, and there are people there in case there are questions or there are concerns about the game. So you have game support to actually also monitor and address those issues. So that's the main parts of when you're creating a game. And those are the types of jobs also that you would see. You'd find game designers, game artists, game programmers, and then you have game support agents. So, but it actually doesn't stop there. People think that, okay, I don't know how to program or do art. Oh, I can't go into the game industry anymore. But they forget that game companies are still companies, It still requires leaders. It still requires marketers. And that's actually also another thing that I think is being neglected sometimes. Games are a product, The games are a commercial product. So we actually also need marketers to help sell the game. So definitely there are positions open for people who are in business development or sales or marketing for games as well. So, having said that, would it be a good idea to step into the game industry? I would say that it still is a good idea to step into the game industry, because the game industry is actually a multi-billion-dollar global industry, and it's a very global industry. Normally, when you create a game, it's really not just available or made available to the Filipino audience, but to a worldwide audience. So it's interesting, it's fun, it's not always going to be what you expect, but it is an interesting industry. So I would encourage teachers, students, parents to actually look into games as a viable career option, because there really is, it really is an industry. There's money there, and you know, there's fulfillment, and there's like sharing of ideas and creating of innovative games. So I would encourage actually getting into the game industry. And that's it. Thank you for listening. And I'm now open to questions.
Thank you very much, Miss Ria. Our third panelist this afternoon, sound artist, composer, and curious listener with a wide range of work for film, theater, and dance. So let's welcome Miss Teresa Barrozo.
Hi everyone. Ano lang, sabihin ko lang na medyo hindi maganda ang connection ko ngayon. So baka po mawala-wala ako, pero babalik at babalik ako. Ayun. So, hi everyone. Off ko lang yung video cam ko para makatulong sa internet ko. Ayan. Hi everyone. My name is Teresa Barrozo, and I am a curious listener. So, ayan. I am a composer, I am a sound designer, and a sound artist working in the fields of media, entertainment, and the arts. As a composer, I do mostly film music compositions, and here are some of the films I have worked on. I also compose music and do sound design for theater. I often collaborate with dance and performance artists, creating music and soundscapes for their works. But my general practice revolves around sound. I make artworks, sound installations, objects, sound situations using sound or concepts on sound as my medium. As part of my sound artwork, I also organize events and do performances investigating the listening culture. Okay, so what am I doing here? What does someone like me have to do with science and technology? Allow me to be more honest here and me to be more open, okay? When my friend, Miss Lights, Miss Lights Viloria reached out to me and invited me to give a short talk about my arts practice in relation to science and technology, I was very hesitant to accept. Sabi ko, parang hindi naman ako yung tamang tao for this. Wala namang masyadong science and technology ang mga gawain ko. Then she started interrogating me about my work processes, my collaborations, etc. And as our conversation got deeper, I slowly started to realize how much science, technology, engineering, and also math intersects in my process as an artist. Akala ko kasi kapag sinabing science at math, opposite siya ng arts or sining. Akala ko lang. At 'di ba kapag minsan siguro nandun ako sa generation na pinalaki na kung gusto magaling ka sa dun ka sa science, mag-science ka. Kapag mag-science course ka, o magaling ka mag-drawing, magaling ka sa kumanta, o mag-arts ka. Na para bang magkaiba at magkalayo talaga yung mga iyon, 'di ba? So anyway, yun, again, it was always science versus the arts, when in fact it's not the case pala. They coexist and go hand in hand. Let me share with you some of what I do. For example, in live theater shows, I learned about how sound propagates in space. This is so I could balance the sounds and amplified voices and music and provide oral clarity for a show. I had to think where for example, my live show, kailangan kong i-survey yung buong theater or yung venue so I could think where the best place to put the speakers para ma-achieve yung balanced sound. So, parang hindi siya creative, pero na-realize ko, shucks, that's science. That's basically, I had to understand acoustics, no? So, ito naman isa, there's this in performance, I've learned how to use acoustics and play with reverberation. So, sige, ano ang reverberation? Example na lang. 'Di ba pag sinasabi, gusto mong maganda yung pagkanta mo, kumanta ka habang naliligo sa CR. Yung gano'n, 'di ba? Kasi may ibang quality yung boses. So, basically, you're playing with reverberation. So, this is yung when I say I've learned how to use acoustics and play with the reverberation, this is a conscious choice that affects the musical composition. Sa kanan ng screen, sana nakita nyo, sana may earphones kayo dyan. Here's a clip of a performance we did in the Ateneo. That sound you hear is coming from that girl, that artist named Ami Yamasaki. So there, here we exploited the interior architecture of the building, which created reverberation. As our singer produced vocal sounds, in fact, bird vocalizations pa nga, while moving around the space. Diba? So, again, imagine singing inside the bathroom and nagbabounce ang boses nyo, ang sound sa tiles, and creates this phenomenon which we call the reverb. So, yun. Okay, next. I also do field recording work as part of acoustic ecology, where we listen to the environment to evaluate the health of a habitat. This involves soundscape recording. Here sa mga pictures, no, there's this we had recordings sa Noosa Biosphere Reserve in Australia. Sa baba nun, actually hindi to recording, it's just listening. Kids, students from Casa San Miguel sa Zambales, Philippines, naglalagay kami ng contact mics na sa environment, like dito sa puno. And isang picture dito sa taas, that's the Brisbane River, Australia, where we drop hydrophones. So what are hydrophones? Simple lang. Mikropono na pwede sa tubig. So anong ginagawa nun? Pag dinrop mo yun sa under the sea or the river, the body of water, it listens to the body of life in the water. So that's very interesting. In fact, narinig pa ang voices or minsan movements ng shrimps, fishes, etc., etc. And then of course sa ilalim, the Beaver Creek Biosphere Reserve in Arizona, USA. Okay, so here is an example of a visualized sound in a habitat. Here is a sample of a visualized sound in a habitat. This is what we call a spectrogram. Okay, and this is think of it as X-ray. Parang in X-ray yung katawan, pero ito ay sound yung in X-ray, parang ganun. And this is the soundscape of Mount Rainier National Park in the US. You look at it closely, highlighted areas show insect aircraft noises. Diba? Ayan o, yung mga naka-square, makita niyo may images, nag-iiba yung quality nung picture, diba? I love this so much kasi parang you can use your eyes to listen, parang gano'n. So meron dyan, makita mo yung jet, yung may rectangle, tapos may jet nakasulat. iba yung shade niya. Tapos may kung marmot, kung makita niyo parang parang gumagano yung drawing. Sorry distant jet, may bird, etc., insects, unknown aircraft, etc. May propeller pa nga kung nakikita niyo. So why am I saying this? I'm so in love with sound. So what I'm trying to say is there is so much data and meaning in sound if we only know how to listen. Diba? Ang saya-saya. Okay, so let me move on. I have always been interested with how movement can bring out sounds. My very simple knowledge in electronics, like microcontrollers, sensors, and coding, helped me develop a prototype for a simple musical instrument that is triggered by human movement. I'm gonna play something. Ito. Kung hindi nyo na-catch yun, kakantahin ko na lang. Yung sensor naka-wrap sa hand niya, tapos habang nilalapit niya sa face niya, yung tunog parang woo, nagre-respond. Parang product by myself and my friend who's a really great electronics and visual artist, si IC Haushan, and also our electronics engineer, Martin Miranda. So yun. It was our attempt to create our simple new instrument. Parang ganun. So again, my knowledge in tech is very limited. That's why I usually collaborate with engineers and designers who help me realize my vision. Having some knowledge in electronics is handy, especially when communicating with the technical team. Here naman is a clip of my installation vocalizations. Bago ko i-play, may marinig kayong tunog, and itong tunog na to ay triggered talaga siya ng mga taong dumadaan sa space na yon. Kasi na-trigger niya yung sensor or sensors.
Tweet, tweet. Tweet, tweet. Tweet, tweet.
Ayun. So, tanong ko, nandyan pa po ba kayo? Or matagal nang wala akong kausap?
Yes
po. Thank you so much. Kita nyo, nakarely ako sa sound para maramdaman yung connection ko with you guys. So, thank you for responding. Ayun, okay, let me continue. Here's another lab for a public sound installation we worked on recently with the help of my electronics engineer friend, Martin Miranda. Again, basically, basic lang ito. Sensors, speakers, and sensors na tinitrigger ng movement. Medyo mahilig ako doon. Can I just share? It sounds very scientific na sensors, trigger, blah, 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 etc. Pero for me kasi, I'm fascinated with how humans can, for example, with this one, human movement can trigger and change the soundscape ng environment niya. Ikaw, human being, may bosses ka, may nasa yung power to mold your environment. So, siguro yung interpretation ko lang is using the medium of sound. Pero ang daming mahalagang ibig sabihin nun for me. Anyway, okay, let me move on. Okay, here naman I have learned to sketch basic codes. Basic lang. Learning C++ specific since I play with the Arduino. But in this specific project, I used this by composers, performers, software designers, researchers, and artists in general. Shown here is a site-specific sound installation in the CCP library and archives. Try ko nga i-play ulit yung... ano lang yan, time lapse. Kung nakikita nyo dun sa buong picture, no, meron kayo makita S1, S6, S3, S8, etc. S1 to 8 yan. Anong S? Gumawa lang ako ng visual ng program, no, na yung S, basically, ganito lang kasimple yan. Speakers. So basically, nag-spread ako ng 8 speakers all over the library. At bawat speaker, iba-iba ang tunog na lumalabas. Hindi lang siya yung parang, may play kang MP3 player mo, di ba? So parang, iba-iba yung lumalabas. Habang nag-move yung tao around the space, iba-iba yung natatanggap niyang audio response from the speakers. And of course, may relationship yung kung ano yung nilalabas sa speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker, etc. Hanggang sa speaker 8. May mga libro, meron, and I also, I use sound as my medium. But for example, in these other photos, no, parang may makita ka, may card catalog. Sa totoo lang, hindi ko alam kung yung mga nakikinig dito alam ang card catalog. At kung pumupunta pa sa library.
Alam pa po, ma'am.
Wow, alam ko na rin kung ano po ang age natin. Kasi ang marami po sa mga kabataan hindi na alam ang card catalog because of the internet, diba? So, and in fact, nung ginawa ko tong installation na to, ang daming mga high schoolers, young students na first time lang pumasok sa library at makita ang card catalog. Anyway, balik ako sa topic ko. Halimbawa dito, no, may card catalog ka, tapos may nakatutok na speakers. Na mga microphones. So, sa totoo lang, dyan sa that one is a visual display lang siya. It's I'm actually pointing out what the knowledge na coming out from these small drawers. Sobrang rich collection of books. Kumbaga. So, trying to amplify these quote unquote forgotten tama bang sabing forgotten literature, for example. I love that idea na parang you're trying the word resonate, the word amplify, because these words are relating to with science and technology. But unfortunately, my time's up. And also, kinakabahan ako na maputol pa ako ulit. Ayan. I will leave you with this. A great deal of creativity is required to make scientific breakthroughs. And art is just as often an expression of or a product of scientific knowledge. That is all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Very much, Ms. Teresa. Nako, we have a lot of interesting questions po for you and Ms. Ria. Siguro po, while you're taking a breath po muna, I'm going to field the first question to Ms. Ria. Ma'am Ria, we have a question po from Sir Cesar Villaruz. Ayan po. Ms. Ria, here's a question for you. I'm just reading it verbatim po muna. Good afternoon, ma'am. How do you encourage the youth, especially women, to venture into game programming or software design, which is somewhat male-dominated field, to take it as their future profession?
Yeah, actually, we've been talking about that for a long time now, because the interesting thing about the game industry is that yung barrier to entry for women is non-existent. But there seems to be very few women anyway. So it's not about na yung hindi sila makapasok because it's like, ayoko because din the domination ng guys. Hindi eh. Like even the developers in the industry are clamoring for more women. Because we've also noticed that it really is the studio just is more interesting when you have a balance, Sometimes, or I don't mean to offend anybody here, and gano'n naman talaga when you have like younger guys in the office. But there was a time na puro guys lang ang nasa office ko. Amoy mo talaga ang difference kung puro sila lalaki or kung may babae. That kind of thing. But the weird thing is, there is no barrier. People are welcome to get into the industry. In fact, it's easy to succeed. There are very few women in the industry, but I think most of them are holding top positions right now. It's not difficult to succeed in the game industry. The thing is, I think the problem is really interest. Probably gaming, and this is just my theory, because we're Filipinos, and there seems to be this idea na, the Filipina woman has to be sensible, and games isn't usually the most sensible industry out there. So I really think it's more of an image thing than actual access, because really, it's easy. You want to get into the game industry, come. We're not gonna discriminate. Basta magaling ka mag-program, we'll hire you. Magaling ka mag-art, we'll hire you. No problem. Just show us na magaling ka. So that's one of the things that and I think that's a good thing. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter kung saan ka graduate or which part of the country you're coming from. Show me good work. I'll take you. Ganun naman diba? But yeah, I really think it's an issue of interest. So I think what we could do would really be, change how we look at games, because syempre, diba, in the past, or siguro in the past decade, games has always been seen as bad influence yan, instead of studying, naglalaro ka and things like those. But yes, that's true, but that's part of growing up. At saka, nowadays, the interesting thing is, because now we have analytics and and numbers do not lie, right? A big portion, the largest portion ng gamers are not the young ones, who are the ones playing the Candy Crushes and the like, huh? It's not the young ones, right? And almost half of the half na rin 50% of the players are actually female. So it's not a male-dominated thing, player-wise. In the at the back, production-wise, kulang pa rin ang babae though. It's really mostly men. Which para sa akin, please, if there are women there who would like to be part of the game industry, please do so, because half of the target market of games anyway, half of the players out there anyway are female.
Thank you, Miss
Guilty
Ria.
daw.
Thank you, Miss Ria, for that answer. Probably we extend the question also to Miss Teresa regarding Miss Ria mentioned about the non-barrier in game development. What about in your field, Miss Teresa?
Okay, nainggit ako kay Miss Ria kasi may parang non-barrier nga, di ba? Ako kasi na-experience ko at nakikita ko sa peers ko na paano ba to? Especially with parang ganito na lang kasimple. Kapag babae ka, magaling ka kumanta. Yung ganun, kaya at nakakagulat kapag nag-dance ka. Yung ganun. O kaya parang napapangunahan ng mga ganitong mga pag-iisip, di ba? And yun, anyway. So, when I started, especially with music technology, I compose and then I use music technology. It was hard for me to find a community, because sasabihin ko, especially with music technology, especially before, very male dominated. Hirap talaga ako. Sige, share ko na rin. Sige, sabihin ko na rin. To the point na pakiramdam ko na, halimbawa may parang kapag may share ka, ikakat ka kagad, hindi ganyan, ganito dapat. Yung mga ganon. And then, okay. Ako naman, okay, willing to learn. Totoo, kasi pag may makukuha ko sa'yo, matututo ako, game. Kukunin ko po yan. Parang so, and then ito na. Until ang nakakayang pero until nagkaroon ng nagkaroon ng awards yung trabaho ko, awards, film festival, ganyan natutunog, ganyan, and then I felt na parang nakikinig sila sa akin, nakikinig na sila sa akin, may ganon. So para bang sana hindi umabot pa sa kailangang may patunayan pa na siya, pero may ganon. But you know what? Saan ko, nakaka-discourage siya. Sobra, kung ikukwento ko lang buhay ko, puro discouragement, puro sad things. Pero, I found strength nung nag-reach out ako at nag-connect ako with women artists, and makers, etc. Even hindi nga lang artists, pero women experiencing the same thing. Alam mo yun? So, parang akala ko dati ako lang yon. Ako lang nakaka-experience. Parang, ikaw din. So, this is not man bashing. No. Pero parang, okay, so, meron nga ako, kaibigan ko si Len Calvo, score. Ang joke namin nung at recent ko lang siya naging friend, no? So parang, grabe, so ikaw rin? So pareho pala tayo, we're just faking it till we make it. Pareho, tas tawa kami, ganyan. So, pero again, it's inspiring and it's nakaka-strengthen yung presence pa lang na I start collaborating with women and then parang, wow, nakikinig kayo? Ano yung idea ko? Nagninibago ako. Ano yun, nakalakas lang ng loob. So, minsan kailangan ng ganong push. Sorry, napaka-basic ng sagot ko pero totoo siya. I'm coming from my truth. Ayun lang po.
Maraming salamat, Ms. Teresa. No? At nga po, yung challenge na shinare ninyo na minsan kailangan pa ng isang award para ma-validate na ikaw ay magaling o lahat ay pero natutuwa po ako dun sa minention niyo. I think malaking lesson ito para sa mga maraming teachers po na nakikinig ngayon na yung kahit sa maraming discouragement ay yung nakakahanap ka ng strength, no? At yun ay minsan katulad nga yan nakita natin dun sa collaborative na tinatawag natin at may mga parang pare-parehong pananaw na gustong yun magtulungan, no? Parang ganun po. Siguro ibabalik ko bukod po dun sa sinabi niyo na yun yung talagang po yan, no? Great sense of strength din talaga, no? Parang willpower na parang you don't get discouraged, parang gano'n, despite this barriers, obstacles, mga ganyan po. Babalik din po ako siguro na bukod po dito dun sa yung sense of na yan, yung willpower na yon. Siguro skills naman po kasi parang objective siya, no? Ano ba yung parang skills na hahanapin natin para din po sa kaalaman ng ating mga teachers po na nandito kasi para baka mamaya may gems na pala doon sa klase nila para ma-mentor nila at mas lalo nilang ma-nurture po ito. So balik ko po muna kay Ma'am Ria and then later on kay Ma'am Teresa. Thank you.
Sige. Was that the question? How to find those gems
yung
and nurture
skills
them?
po and the skills that they need po. In your field naman po, Ma'am Ria.
Sige. Well, before I get into the parang industry specific skills, one thing that I really think na kulang in the Philippines, it's sad and I really think we really need to address it, is critical thinking. It doesn't matter what industry. Mahina pa, kulang pa tayo sa critical thinking. And I say this because like for us, we're a small industry. The game industry is a small industry. Okay. And there are graduates of computer science, of game development, kasi now we have courses on game development, diba? On art, on animation, and multimedia. These are people that we can hire. And yet, nagrereklamo because we're part of like the Game Developers Association is parang a sub association of the bigger IBPAP, which is the IT-BPM association. So IBPAP conducted a study some years ago, mga 5 years ago. And then, syempre, kinausap ng industry na parang, guys, we have a situation here. We were very supportive of you guys, helping you guys connect with government to create these courses that you need. Bakit 5% lang ng graduates ang hinahire ninyo? And then you come to us and tell us na kulang kayo ng tao. That was the question. And the answer was, because they're not good enough. And the next question was, okay, how do we make them good enough? Do we need bridging courses? Do we need more programming courses? And the companies, the member companies were the ones who said, wait, stop, mali. No, they don't need any more programming courses. The reason why we couldn't hire them was because their problem-solving skills were mahina. No amount of teaching them programming will fix that. So yun yung, I think, one of the things that are really, that's really very important when it comes to STEM-related courses, whether that's game development, programming, or anything. Critical thinking talaga. Kasi I can teach you the syntax, but when I give you the problem, dapat you can use what I've taught you to figure out how to solve the problem. And that's And that is the medyo lacking at the moment. So for the teachers out there, my suggestion would be push them for critical thinking. Give them problems to solve para masana yung kanilang brains to solve problems. Yung mga out of the box thinking, creative problem solving, there's an enjoyment to it. It's a game, diba? If you have a problem and then you need to solve it, so think about it. And I think kulang lang tayo sa practice. I think maybe ang nangyayari was we sometimes get too blinded with the shiny things. New technology, new programming language, ganon. Na guys, it's fine. Yes, we will play with those, but don't forget that those are tools. We will use them to solve problems. We need to practice solving problems. All right? That's my advice.
Ayan po, thank you. Dear teachers, no, please, yung mga tinatawag po nating non-negotiable na mention ni Ma'am Ria, no, yes, there are shiny things around us, but please, there are what you call non-negotiable skills. So yan, yung kanina, critical thinking, problem solving, and then of course, creative thinking, ayan po. Now, Ma'am Teresa, kasi kanina ito partly ay dun sa game development na nabanggit ni Ma'am Ria. What about po dun sa field ninyo? Are there a lot of overlaps po na ma-expect natin? Yan po.
Sorry, again, sorry.
Yung dun po sa mga skills, ma'am, sorry, sa mga skills po na, kasi dun sa field ng game development ay critical thinking, problem solving, ayan po. What about in the field of sound art creation?
Sa field ko or sa creative sa arts, no, kung ako ay teacher, I would kapag nakita kong parang related talaga sa sagot ni Miss Ria, na creative critical thinker na yung bata, estudyante, magandang alagaan yon. And sige, doon na lang sa para sa akin ang creative pagiging creative at ang critical thinking parang ganun siya. Ayoko siyang paghiwalayin, parang sige, kung mag-focus lang sa arts, no, parang kung hindi ako magaling mag-explain, pero if I want to say no, at tinuturo ko ay pagsabi ng no, I'll tell the student na parang, what are the creative things? How will you say no without saying the word no? And sometimes magugulat ka, feeling ko may mga sagot ako doon. And then you'll see the students, ang dami nila paraan, especially very creative, lalo na kung mga high schoolers or mas bata pa na parang, ang bilis ng utak nila, ang dami. Na nauunahan pa nga tayo. So parang magandang yung pagiging nila ay i-nurture, I guess.
Ma'am Teresa? Okay. Baka probably pababalik sa Ma'am Teresa. Pero parang na-mention niya dito po, na-mention ni Ma'am Teresa, basically yung yes. Ma'am, please go ahead po. Please continue.
Yes. Yun, in-nurture yung ganung creativity. But also, I would like to say na hingin ko lang din sa mga teachers, no. Baka nga baliktad to sa sagot na kapag may makitang mga kabataan na hindi siguro pumapas sa experience natin na kung ano ang dapat maging creative, o kung ano dapat na, ganito dapat ang critical thinker, ganun, parang ganun. So parang, maari din silang alalayan. Dahil hindi lahat ng tao ay sabay-sabay ang growth. At I'm also proud to say na until ngayon, I still have that growth. At marami pa rin akong hindi alam. At marami pa rin tayong gustong matutunan. Alam mo yun? So, at isa siguro ako doon sa mga bata noon na hindi mabilis sa maraming bagay. So, and dahil din sa mga mentors na may naniwala sa akin na nag-point out. In fact, kasama nga sa presentation ko kung hindi pa pinoint out ni Miss Lights na puro pala science ang trabaho mo. Kung hindi pa niya pinoint out yun, oo nga no, posible pala. so yun, pwede tayong mag-guide and pwede din tayong mag-alalay ng mga estudyante. Yun lang muna.
Thank you, ma'am. No, so parang for our dear teachers, so we're getting the sense here that it's important to provide those different opportunities, no, various opportunities for students to really demonstrate yung critical thinking nila, and then problem solving, creative thinking, and wag natin silang ikahon, no, na yung parang isang form lang ng expression ng critical thinking or creative thinking yung i-expect po natin. At gusto ko rin yung nasabi kanina din ni Ms. Teresa na ano lang din, we also have to recognize that people have different rates of learning also, no? So yung some might be a little bit parang will manifest the skill or a little bit later compared to the others. Ayan po. Meron pong mga questions dito sa chat box, pero Doc Mona, you're here in the Zoom room. You might want to address this question to Ms. Ria and Ms. Teresa. Doc Mona, are you here? Sige, hindi pa po nakapag-unmute yata si Doc Mona. But meron po ditong question, Ma'am Ria and Ma'am Teresa, regarding yung current, ano niyo po kasi ngayon, work ay sa field ng game development, at tapos yung kay Ma'am Teresa, no? Is there a need to complete a degree program? Mona, you're here, so please.
Sorry,
elaborate on your question. Go ahead.
Nakamute. Okay. I'm just curious. Does one need to complete a degree program for both Ma'am Miss Ria Lu and Miss Teresa Barrozo to be able to become a game developer and also to become a sound designer or sound artist? I know Ateneo offers this sub-specialization in game development for their BS Computer Science program. And I also know that the UST offers Bachelor of Music in Music Technology because my nephew is a graduate of that program. So I'd like to know if enough ba na, dapat ba you have that degree or training lang and the interest will do?
Hindi ako nagtapos ng aking music degree. Naniniwala pa rin ako na mainam na makapagtapos. Yeah. Sana natapos ko. Ano yan? Frustration ko siya at insecurity ko pa nga siya minsan. So, mainam na magtapos ng kahit ano, actually. Why am I saying this? As simple as may mga further studies like masteral or papuntang PhD, etc. na very specialized na hindi ko mapapasukan dahil wala akong bachelor's. Yung ganun kasimple. Hindi simple yon. But at the same time, I want to share na minsan kasi nakakahon na. In fact, ang kurso ko ay 6-7 years ako sa UP College of Music, major in composition. So, at ang tinuturo sa amin doon ay contemporary music composition. Hindi ko na-elaborate, pero basta composition. Kung pinagpatuloy ko yon at yun lang ang iniisip ko na magiging composer ako, at ang composer na alam ko ay yung nagsusulat ng notes alone, at maaring hindi na ako nag-explore sa coding, maaring hindi na ako nag-explore ng electronics, even ideas in architecture, etc., acoustic ecology. Dahil pakiramdam ko, yun yung inaral ko eh. Bakit ako mag-iiba? Parang ganon. And I'm saying this kasi, halimbawa sa film, maraming mga director na hindi ng film course. In fact, yung iba, production design. Yung iba, science related, pero film director sila. So, siguro ang sinasabi ko dito ay hindi porque ito ang dinesisyon natin, ayun na yung forever natin. Wow, yun, forever. Diba? Maaring, ang interesting pa nga dun dito ka nasimula, saan ka pwedeng pumunta? I find that interesting na nanganganak pa ng bagong profesyon yung inaral mo. So, again, babalik ako, yes, mas mainam kung makatapos ng pag-aaral. Kasi hindi lang naman tungkol sa science, sa math, sa art, sa pagsusulat ng notes ang pag-aaral. Pero tinitrain ka rin ng critical thinking, tinitrain ka rin sa practices mo sa pag-aaral. Yung mga ganon, di ba? Paggawa ng homework, pagsubmit ng etc. ng requirements. Yun lang po.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Teresa. Ms. Ria.
Yes, well, ganito. As you know, sa games, there are different parts. Hindi lang naman isang course yan. So, on the art side, okay, you can be a graduate of multimedia, of fine arts, of game development, specializing on the art side. But also, actually, ganito. For the art side, a lot of the Philippine game companies will accept you kahit na hindi ka graduate. As long as you show portfolio. I mean, why would we say no to somebody magaling? It doesn't matter kung anong graduate nila as long as magaling sila. So that's the scenario for art. If you're good at it, we'll hire you, regardless of what school or degree you come from, regardless if you've graduated or not. But ibang usapan sa programming. Sa programming kasi, the thing about programming is you don't see it. Okay? I mean, you don't see it agad-agad. You know, you can't read all of their sample code, right? So you can see their work, pero hindi mo alam kung which one ba dito yung kanyang part. Usually kasi in programming projects, more than one developer. Yung pala, malaman mo, UI lang palang ginawa niya. Yung parang ganon. So, you know, it's hard to gauge how good an applicant is for programming compared to art. And so, and also, once you've hired a programmer, syempre, it's also hard to let them go. Ayaw mo naman na parang tinry mo, you know what? You're not good enough. Please leave. Hindi naman ganon, di ba? We don't do that, right? And so it is very important to actually have the correct hires. Like, dapat yung pag-hire mo sa kanila, correct siya. And to minimize the problem of wrong hires, what most companies do is they would choose or they would favor graduates from certain schools na alam nilang okay ang output. And that's why, yeah, usually we really do look at kung graduate ka of a certain school and degree. Now, does it have to be a game development degree? No. There's game development. We also accept from computer science, mga IT courses, we're okay with that. Yung mga computer science specializing in game development or with electives on game development, no problem either. So we would take those, any of those programming courses, we'll take them.
Thank you, Ma'am Ria. Actually, here listening to our panelists, starting with Miss Alexandra, Teresa, and then Ma'am Ria, parang there's this parang recurring message of openness and fluidity. Parang you don't stop learning and you should be open to, actually the word that comes to mind is yung curiosity, no? Na parang, and that is actually that's a powerful characteristic in STEAM. Also a powerful characteristic na nakikita natin ngayon dito sa arts, no? Arts, technology, design, and culture. So talagang there's this really parang a convergence of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Now, meron pa rin po tayong mga, I hope you'll be able to, you're open to 2 more questions po before we wrap up our session. Here, there's one question po from Maria Josephine Abuaron. No? Sabi po niya, what games, sound, music would you recommend to be integrated in lessons in math and science that will both let students develop skills and desirable values that you think, at the level, let's say, of basic education would somehow lead them to this, let's say, careers later on, or yung the curiosities po that can be developed at that level?
Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
I would say na you don't have to like for games ano ba? Rather than using a certain game to make science and math and ganyan interesting, sa akin, just make science and math interesting because they are, gamify the subject instead of finding something to attract them with. Like, kumbaga, in other words, parang instead of, let's say, giving them a reward for doing math, no. Math is the reward. It is fun, I mean, probably a lot of people will not agree with me, but when I was in college, one of my favorite subjects was analytical math, which was that it was that subject na yung we had graphs of not just the Cartesian graphs, but like the polar graphs, and then para sa akin, it was so fascinating. It's like, oh, I made an image with a formula. It's cool. It feels fun. And I think that's what that's young people tend to forget. Na parang, guys, we don't need to like mask mathematics for you in games, or we don't need to reward you with games or something just so you would do math. Feeling ko, again, just like the problem of women in the industry, math is also an image problem. Math is not scary. Math is a toy, just like games and just like programming languages and stuff like that. Pero feeling ko nauunahan ng, ay, math, ay, science, dude, relax. And I think more than a game to promote it, it's really gamify it. Show them why it's fun. Show them what the game is in math, in science. I think that should be the approach.
Oh, thank you, Ma'am Ria. Nako, yan po our math teachers. Please heed the message of Ma'am Ria. Ayan po. And Ma'am Teresa, please. Thank you.
Wala akong masagot sa yung mag-recommend ng sound or music na sa lessons, ganyan. However, ang masasabi ko po ay enjoy music, sound, enjoy listening to anything, enjoy watching, enjoy the arts, and siguro hindi siya dapat lang na para bang tingnan as art, science. Alam yun, na kinalakihan ko. Yun. So, at dahil kapag na-enjoy natin ang mga bagay-bagay, maaring doon lalabas ang creativity natin kapag lagi natin itong kino-consume. Yeah. And then, if you're into the sciences, for example, yung creativity na dinala ng halimbawa ng pag-appreciate ng sining, hindi parang imposibleng hindi ma-integrate sa daily science life mo. Parang gano'n. Parang lalabas at lalabas yon. May sense ba yun?
Opo. It makes great sense po. No? Parang ito sinasabi nga natin na parang we should not keep yung STEM and then art in silos. Parang there's a better or a more powerful mix pag nandun na sila, magkasama sila. And yun yung kanina nakita natin, no? Mula kay Miss Alexandra, kay Ma'am Ria sa game development, and then ngayon dun sa ating pong sound design, creation, and all. Meron pong nagtataas ang kamay. Ito po, lights, please. I field your question to Ria and Teresa. Lights? Are you still there?
I can't. Sorry, ayan, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
As you can see, our speakers are, I know them personally, and I know how creative and how excited they are, with their craft. I met Teresa when they did the musical for the Department of Labor and Employment. They made the musical out of the history of Dole, so you can imagine what creativities they brought with them, with PETA. But I think there's also an opportunity here, as Ria was mentioning on how you could see how excited Ria was on analytical geometry. And I think there is a collaboration, I think, that we're seeing here on on how to make science and math, right? Science, math, fun, using technology and the arts, no? And I think they bring a different lens. No, on how, because they're more on the application. They're on the other side, and they're looking back at how they were able to use math and science for the arts. No? So I don't know. I think this is a good challenge also for NISMED, for our science and math teachers here. How do you see the fun in science and math as they see it? They look at it differently, no? Tawag dito, Ria sees these shapes, these numbers in a different way. And I think there is value to that. And you, as you see, what's her name? Si Alex, diba, iba rin yung, the way she sees the fabric, right? We see it as a ball of yarn, but she sees it in a different way. So maybe that's also another thing we can see now that we see that there is a different perspective to it. I don't know. I send the question to you, Doc Sherry, as NISMED, no? Na
Yes,
parang paano ba natin
it's a very interesting afternoon, really, Lights, and I really appreciate the wisdom of our speakers, no, our panelists, kasi parang I know it's a tall order for NISMED, but seeing all of this, na parang it opened really our minds, and parang naipaisip tuloy ako, parang we're not doing anything pa pala sa space na to, so we need to do something like, you know, bringing together our parang our creators, no, and then of course yung ating mga STEM experts dito sa university, baka parang meron na tuloy kami naiisip na baka pwedeng gawin. So hopefully po, Ma'am Ria and Ma'am Teresa will engage you po as we bring together itong mga tinatawag natin na collective, collaborative, na really elevating yung STEAM na tinatawag po natin. So as we end po our panel session this afternoon, I'd like to solicit your final message po from for our dear participants. We can start first with Ma'am Ria and then we end with Ma'am Teresa. Ma'am Ria, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sige. Siguro, if I was just going to give a message, don't be afraid of STEM. You know, like I said, it's a toy. You know, play with it. Wag unahin yung yung image that we have of them. Na parang, ay, complicated din. Ay, it's so hard. Because like I remember when I was young, I was like 13, 14. That was the time naka-start pa lang ng internet and everything. I remember that meron akong favorite na pinapanood. This was the time of fan fictions and fan arts and things like those, right? And I distinctly remember na sabi ko, oh, this favorite na show that I'm watching, this favorite anime that I'm watching, I want to make a website for it. I didn't know how to make a website. I'll figure out how to make a website. Pero ganun yung thinking at that time. It's like, mahirap eh. So, this anime deserves a website, you know? And so gagawa ka. The difficulty is irrelevant. It just determines how much time you need to put in. Kasi mahirap siya, you know? Okay, it takes a bit more time to make. But it was never really a deterrent when I was young. And I knew I had friends like that. Na parang, hindi, let's do this. Sige, mahirap na. Sige, well, okay, fine. 3 days instead of 1. You know, ganon. But I think that seems to have disappeared now, you know? Mention mo pa lang, parang, sige, I'm in game development. Talaga, may programming ba yan? Meron? Ay, ayoko, mahina ako sa math eh. How would you know? You know? I haven't even tried it. Sure. So, you know, so what kung mahina ako sa math? There must be ways pa rin so that we can create a game anyway. Di ba? Parang, so ganun yung thinking dati. It was all about the output. It was all about the application. It was all about something that you wanted to create. And then finding out the technologies nandyan so that it would happen, you know. But now, parang siguro ang nangyari was, yun nga, we've lost the joy of tinkering. We probably have medyo mas mahina na yung dreams siguro. Maybe the kids nowadays need more dreams so that the technology is there to enable you to make the dream. Because at the moment, you're just looking at the technology. Stop just looking at the technology. They're a means to an end. They're not an end, you know? So I think kailangan ng ganong klaseng medyo shift in the mindset for STEM learners nowadays. Yan.
Thank you, Ma'am. Thank you very much, Ma'am Ria. Ma'am Teresa?
ako po ang masabi ko ay kaya ko lang pag-usapan is ang arts dahil yun yung aking gawain. Wait lang ah. These are just tools. Pag gumagamit ako ng technology, pinapaalala ko lang na tools nga lang talaga ito sa gusto kong sabihin, sa gusto kong ikwento, sa gusto namin ikwento. Hindi, yes, nagre-rely ako sa technology na ginagamit ko, pero kapag nag-fail yung technology, halimbawa lang nag-fail, hindi din dapat ako tumigil. Kailangan magpatuloy. So, hindi, kasi maraming mga lumalapit at nagtatanong, ano po bang kunwari sa trabaho ng, so as a film score or sound person, ano po ba dapat binibiling gamit? Ano po ba yung ganyan? So parang, again, sinasabi ko na, tools lang yan, hindi din mainam na laging maging dependent sa pag high-tech ng technology. Critical thinking pa rin, pag-iintindi pa rin halimbawa ng narratibo when doing storytelling work for film scorers or sound designers, no? Yun ay magandang pag-investan, kumbaga. And gusto ko lang pong ibahagi na paalala lang din sa inyo at paalala ko rin sa sarili ko na we can be artists. Yes, we can be scientists, mathematicians, etc., engineers. Pero bago lahat yan, tao muna tayo. Tao muna tayo. Ulit-ulitin ko, tao muna tayo. Tao muna tayo. At ibabalik lang na lagi lahat iyan, lahat ng pagtingin sa paggamit ng sining sa humanity. May sense pa yun? Parang kailangan bumalik siya doon. Kasi hindi. Sa totoo lang, pagre-reflect ko din to sa sarili, parang aanhin ko yun, pero kung halimbawa sa sining, no, sa sining parang aanhin ko yung pag-score ko ng mga ang daming pinaglalaban halimbawa. Pero kung sa sariling araw-araw, parang ang layo na ng topic ko. Pero sa araw-araw na desisyon at pamumuhay ko, hindi ako maayos, para sa wala nang kwenta yung pag-score ko. Wala nang kwenta lahat ng yun. Kundi din ako humane. Anyway, yun lang. Tao muna tayo bago tayo anything else. Yun lang po.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Ria, Ma'am Teresa, and kanina no, kay Alexandra. Thank you for reminding us that in everything that we do, especially for the teachers who are here, no, let's go back to our core. Let's not forget the joy that we find, no, in the things that we do, in the way that we tinker, so in the way we solve problems, in the way that we pursue the things that we want, no. Let's say even it's an output that will take you so long. Never forget the joy of the process that comes along with it. So thank you very much po, Ma'am Ria and Ma'am Teresa. And I hope this is not the end of our collaboration po. Kanina narinig niyo naman kay Lights, no, binigyan niya kami ng napakagandang idea po, at hopefully po sa mga darating na araw ay ang UP NISMED ay magkakaroon po ng ganitong opportunity para magkaroon ng collective at collaborative para po talaga dun sa Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. Ayan po. So at this point po, I'm going to turn it over to Doc Helen para po sa final processes po ng ating panel discussion this afternoon. Marami pong salamat uli, Ma'am Ria, Ma'am Teresa.
Thank you po, Ma'am Sher. And to our panelists, we will now award the certificates of appreciation to our panelists. Again, please allow me to read the contents of the certificate. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to, for unselfishly sharing her valuable time, expertise, and meaningful insights as panelist during the Science Diplomacy Workshop, Women in STEAM Careers webinar series, The Wonderful World of Science and Arts, Women in Science, Culture, and the Arts, with the theme, Celebrating Women and Girls in Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts and Culture, and Mathematics, held via Zoom on March 18, 2022. Signed, Sherilyn C. Monterola, Director, UP NISMED, Linartes M. Veloria, National Project Coordinator, Women in STEM for Workforce, Readiness and Development Program, ILO, Madeline Mitchell, Yolanda, Press and Cultural Officer, Austrian Embassy, Manila. This certificate is awarded to Miss Ria Lu. Same certificate is awarded to Miss Teresa Barrozo. Let us all give our panelists a virtual applause. So to the members of our panel, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to grace this event. Thank you for sharing with us how art, science, and mathematics intersect and how we can create new ways of seeing and communicating, how we can use our eyes to listen and use these skills and tools as storytellers, critical thinkers, and problem solvers. You have illustrated how art can bring science to life and how science is well served by applying an artistic lens. Thank you for shining a bright light on the road you've taken to give a much needed nudge to our women and girls as they consider embarking on a STEAM journey, a journey that will start with something that touches their heart. And to our audience, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. Well, I have good news. To receive your e-certificate of attendance, please answer the evaluation form. The link may be accessed from the chat window and from the Facebook comment section. So the link for the evaluation form will be open until 11:59 p.m. Monday, March 21, 2022. We would love to have all of you with us again on March 28, 2022 for the fourth and last webinar of this series. So do not miss this webinar. And it has the theme, Women in STEM Leadership, Leaders for a Post-COVID World. We will be posting the details on how you can join the said event. Until then, thank you and good afternoon to all. Stay safe and well. Let's continue to celebrate the amazing women in STEAM careers.